and I'm Zoe. I'm currently a third-year smart urbanism student and computer science student at MIT, and I learn most about circular economy and my colleague Shenhong.
Hi, everyone. Very happy to be here. I'm third-year IDM students, currently work with Age Lab as a research assistant, also designers. Very happy to be here, work with Zoe, talk about our initiative Design Inclusive, also our Made Together.
Yeah, so today we have Yves here. Yeah, so super exciting about it. And firstly, we want to thanks to all our exhibition collaborators here, Council for the Arts at MIT, and Sarah is here, and also Western Gallery, MIT Age Lab, IDM Architecture, and IDSA Boston. So this exhibition gonna happen both online and offline. So if you don't have the chance to go to Boston, visit it, please check our website, and Shenkong gonna share it later. And if you have a chance, please visit the MIT Wisdom Gallery exhibition. And Sarah is helping running this exhibition from February 14th to March 12th. Yeah, so about MTG and Design Inclusive. So Make Together is like shortcut MTG. So we started this initiative with at the beginning of the COVID. So after the COVID, like kind of everything's online, and me and Shenhong kind of like rethink about what is the physical and digital version of learning and co-creation in design thinking process. So we started this initiative and have like several events happening in and out of MIT. So in this exhibition, Design Inclusive, we kind of start to rethink about the design from a human and environmental perspectives. And so here, Shenhong gonna introduce our house rule for today's lecture.
Yeah, thanks, Zoe. And then very happy to be here. So today, I know we don't have that much crowd, which is great, like small and sweet group. And then today we have a house rule, like very simple 3 points, like kind of mute your audio, and it'll be great to open your video because we want to see your smiley face, your happy face when we heard like Yves great sharing. And try to type your question in the Zoom chat because we want to capture your thoughts, your ideas, your concerns, your questions. And also you can raise your virtual hand because we want to hear your talk. We want to interact with you. So it'll be great. Like these are very simple 3 house rules for today. And there's also for today's agenda is very straightforward. Once we finish the opening, which is only a 2 slide left, and then we'll hand over to Yves, and then he will talk about his like story, his journey about design. And then we're back to our Q&A section for like 5 minutes. And hopefully we could wrap up everything within like maybe like 35 minutes, if time is possible for Yves. And yeah, let's go to the next slide. Today, sorry, it's not lecture 1. It sounds too serious for this. It's more like a sharing or like story about design at the extremes of life. So this is the Yves topic for today. The next slide. I'm not going to read all his like great bio. This I put it here on purpose because I want to let him to share, present by himself. And for me, I'm a big fan. Both of us are big fan of Yves of Fuse project because it did a lot of like a very iconic, social impactful project, like 1 laptop per child. Worked with MIT a couple of years ago. Also like the by Jabon, like also like a Herman Miller chair. Even like include like a lot of like social innovative project. And then today we're very lucky to have him to share with us like about his journey about extreme life, about like inclusive design. So I'm going to like stop talking. I'm talking too much. I'm going to hand over to Yves. So before we do that, we're going to do like maybe it's not now. We just like let Yves to share his screen and tell him about his story.
Ready? Let's do the share screen thing.
Okay, let's go to share screen over here. This guy. And then portion of screen. And we've got the share sound on. That's great. Click share. And then we'll switch over to Keynote. Just click on Keynote. Oh, just anywhere on the screen right here. Just on the, right there. There you go. That's it. Now they can see everything inside the green box.
Okay.
Just ask them if they can see that. Okay.
All right. Can you see my screen okay?
Yep. Perfect.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, it's very nice to see you all and to be back at MIT. I've done so many trips at MIT. I could almost have a book just focused on MIT projects. And I will walk you through some of these actually today. You know, it's really an honor, you know, for me to be there to speak to you. I've been a big fan of MIT over the years, and as I said, there's so many projects that we've been able to do together. So I think it really matches sort of um, my approach to design, which is, anything is possible as long as you put the right intentions and the right skills into play. And I have found both the intentions and the skills at MIT to be quite extraordinary. So thank you for having me back. So after 20 years of design with with Fuse Project, I finally had some time during COVID to finish my book. It's called Designing Ideas, and it really wants to address, what is design about. And for me, it comes from the deep belief that what design does best, where it is the most important, is when design accelerates the adoption of new ideas. And I would say there's not a time in history where we need more ideas in order to accelerate the fundamental change that is needed. So I'll share ideas of acceleration today, but since I'm a practitioner of design, it's not so much, it's the theory comes along with the designing. I believe in designing and doing, and design thinking and doing. And so that's what I'll illustrate my ideas with firsthand design experiences and firsthand design projects that my team and I at Fuse Project have worked on. Just very quickly, Fuse Project has been around since 1999. It's hard to believe it's been 22, 23 years. 50% of our work is done with larger companies, like Samsung, for example. 50% is entrepreneurial work. And then, of course, there's another bunch of work on top of the 100%, which is what I call design for good work, etc. So, of course, you mentioned the one laptop per child. This was actually my first project with MIT. And this is where, I met some incredible thinking, from Seymour Papert, and worked with incredible visionaries, whether it's Nicolas Negroponte, Mary Lou Jepson, Alan Kay, Walter Bender. It really felt like I was the only non-MIT person on that team for a while. So, and of course, you mentioned Bluetooth speakers, the sail chair. These are all sort of these important projects for us. But today I would like to focus on something else. And I think something that fits your design inclusive lecture here, which is something I've been talking about for a long time, which is design at the extremes of life. And that's really, the way I think of it is that design is most needed where changes are most extreme, where the needs are most acute. For example, in old age, in young age, when we're sick. But also, design is most needed in times of crisis, whether it's our environmental crisis, the crisis of confidence we're experiencing in science, for example, in technology, or in our political system. So much we see, in design today are sort of nice to have that address the comfortable middle part of life. When you're healthy, when you can afford things, when you're buying fun things in your life and gadgets, etc. But for me, where we can be most impactful is, and where technology also can be most impactful, design and technology, is when we're addressing these acute moments in our existence. And so what are the ideas that we're pursuing now? And for me, I find myself in this place where we're leaving these paradoxical moments, and I think as designers we need to address these paradoxical ideas, because that will help people see a future that may be brighter, more hopeful, and more responsible. So for example, we're an area today of hopefully, moving in the direction of circular design and radical change in that. But scientists have been telling us for 30 or 40 years, exactly what would happen to our planet. What we're experiencing today was predicted a long time ago. So why is it that we haven't acted on it? Why is it that we're not, heeding the scientific advice and the scientific warnings that we've been saying for a long time? And it's because our human brains are really not wired for long-term action. We're actually wired for pleasure. What is the next meal, the next experience, the next event, the next party we could go to? And so, for me, we can't live in a world where we're chastising people for being human, for looking for pleasure, for looking for satisfaction. And at the same time, we need to reconcile, climate anxiety, which most of us are feeling deeply, whether it's through visible signs or the invisible signs of nature and the world changing. So this is an interesting question, and I have a couple of approaches there that I think are, part of maybe the answer of how do we reconcile our climate anxiety with also the roaring 20s that, as I'm being told, are about to engulf us post-pandemic. So one of these projects is very humble. It's the ocean cleanup. If you haven't heard about the ocean cleanup, it's an organization based in Holland and San Francisco that sends out boats and a technology to sort of clean up the oceans. It's a nonprofit, and it was started by Boyan Slat, I think when he was 18 years old or so. The idea is to get rid of plastic trash in rivers, but specifically also in the Pacific garbage patch. So what they do is they've developed a cleaning system, basically a vacuum cleaner for the oceans, and they collect all kinds of different trash floating in the area. And the Pacific garbage patch is it's an area that is about the size of 500,000 football fields. So we partnered with them to turn the trash, the collected material, into a valuable and beautiful resource, which it is. And part of the reason for doing this project is twofold. One, we wanted to show that this material shouldn't be there in the first place, shouldn't be in the ocean in the first place, that it is a material that is structural, that can be beautiful. And the other reason to do this project is as a way to engage with supporters, whether it's through financial support, as well as kind of wearing your conviction on you. And so we were able to convert that material into 100% ocean plastic, and then make these sunglasses that are made out of that material. So the plastic in the sunglasses is made 100% from that material. So each pair of sunglasses sold raises funds for the organization and creates awareness, as well for these materials that shouldn't be thrown out in the trash. And each pair itself contributes to the cleaning of 24 football fields in the ocean. So when you're thinking about, the next birthday or the next nice thing you want to do for someone, you purchase one of these, and each pair, the funds raised by a single pair allows for the cleaning of 24 football fields of the ocean. And to date, we have sold enough to clean up about 70 or 75% of the Pacific garbage patch. So it's truly a circular project when essentially the more eyeglasses we sell, the more cleanup can happen. The more we clean up, the more plastic we have to produce more eyeglasses. So here's a little animation of the, oh, actually I have to click on here. Sorry, of how this works. This is about the area on the map of the ocean cleanup. So what I would say is you can go there. They're actually really fast. They get delivered very quickly. You know, while I really love some of the eyeglasses that some of you are wearing here on the screen, if you ever need another pair, go to the ocean cleanup and purchase yourself one or purchase somebody one. The next project is also ambitious, and it's called Proteus, and it's an oceans related project. I have a very personal connection with the ocean. It's myself living in San Francisco in the Bay Area. It is an incredible site, and it is an incredible place for, you know, for respite and for resting and for surfing and for boating, etc. And we partnered with Fabien Cousteau, and his vision is called Proteus. He's a grandson of Jacques-Yves Cousteau, and in that tradition, he wants to build an underwater research and science habitat, which accelerates the oceans research. And once you're in the water already, you can accelerate oceans research by a factor of 40, because the amount of time that it takes to, you know, have a boat fully equipped with the materials and dive down and do research for 1 or 2 hours, then have to do decompression at the top for, you know, for a long time. That's a very slow process to do oceans research. When you're already down at a certain depth, this one is at 60 feet underwater, you can jump in, go do your research, and come back in. And so it accelerates that research. And Proteus is really sort of built with the idea that it is like the International Space Station in concept. So that means that it's modular. You can see the pods that attach on the surrounding of the main architecture. These pods allow different universities, different companies to add their own research capsule and their own research equipment to those research efforts. As you probably know, we've only really explored 5% of the oceans to this date. And while we're all so fascinated and excited to go to space and to go to Mars, there is much for us to know about our own planet. And I would kind of put part of the blame for the lack of interest in our own oceans to the fact that, you know, space is such an exciting, you know, exciting process to go to. You have rockets, you have fire, you have a space station, you have, you know, guys floating, you know, in deep space. All that creates a level of fascination and visibility, which we believe is also needed for oceans research. So this is why we built an exciting looking structure. It's made out of 2 floors. It's actually the largest one that is being ever built. A submarine just accesses it from the bottom in a moon pool. So it's the same thing that happens when you put a cup upside down in your bathtub. You can access that. The submarine can access the Proteus, you know, from on the lower floor, as much light as possible coming in from the top. And the idea there is to create a comfortable, exciting environment for science to take, you know, to happen in, but also to have visitors come in, you know, through online, obviously, classrooms, and for it to become an educational center and a real iconic place for oceans research. The first one is stated to be built in Curacao, and there's been some work already on the survey, and the government of Curacao in the Caribbean is a partner in the project. Another paradox that I think is important for us to resolve, to move forward with, and that inspires our work, is the notion of technology versus humanity. Technology is so much a distraction for us. It's especially the ones we carry in our pockets. And technology has gotten, for very good reasons, a very bad rap in terms of how it's created social division and political problems and social distancing from people. And so for me, what I'm interested in is, how do we bring technology to people in a humanistic way? And what I mean by that is, what I mean by designing for the extremes of life, it's really about how it affects our personal lives. I think this is, being at MIT, it's really key, I think, that we as designers and technologists and architects sort of move and think of technology in the way that it can really address our human needs. So, one of my favorite projects, which is, by the way, another project that happened with some MIT input, is the Happiest Baby Snoo. And this is a project that was initiated because there is a real need. It was initiated by Dr. Harvey Karp. Postpartum depression affects 25%, 20 to 25% of parents. Exhaustion, illness, and marital conflict, ER visits, death from SIDS. There's about 3,500 deaths from SIDS every year. That is, it's not a byproduct of having a baby. It's really a serious issue. And I started this project with Dr. Harvey Karp. We worked on it together for 5.5 years. He's a pediatrician who really invented the most used and endorsed method for putting babies back to sleep, which is called the 5 S's. And it's about swaddling the baby. It's about shushing the baby with noise, making this rhythmic noise that resembles the sound of when a baby was in the womb. It's about swinging the baby, moving it side to side in a specific method. And so this is the official method for that you will learn about when you go to a state hospital, for example, or when you're in the army, and it's the most used and the most covered method for babies and sleep. And so Dr. Harvey Karp is so great at it. He's so incredibly good at this that we essentially thought he thought we should replicate this method in a robot. So what about if a robot could deliver this in your home while while you're in bed and give you a few more hours of sleep every night? And so, for the 5.5 years that I worked with Dr. Harvey Karp, you get these questions as a designer, which is, what are you working on next? What's exciting? What's interesting? And I would always say to people, well, I have no idea if this project is going to make it. I don't know if we're going to actually build this, but I'm working on a robot that takes care of your baby. And what do you think the reaction was? People were like, oh my God, no, I would never use that. A robot to take care of my baby? That sounds awful. That sounds so inhumane, And I basically got 100% negative reaction on the idea, which was part of me sharing the idea, part of me talking about the things I'm working on, is a way to get insights and to kind of feel what people's initial gut, reaction might be. And so we started designing the Snoo with this in mind. Actually, one of our I mean, one of our partners very early on was Deb Roy, who, you know, I'm sure everybody knows here at MIT. We worked on the engineering portion, the sort of setup, how to swaddle the baby, all of the issues that seemed so scary and nearly impossible. And we got to the Happiest Baby Snoo, which I will share with you now. And I will share with you a video of babies in the snoo. And I'll explain it and then I'll start it. And I promise you this is not going to last very long because it's one of the most annoying sounds I'm sure that you've ever heard, which is a baby crying. Now there's going to be 4 of them crying on this video. So these are very angry babies, all of them. They haven't slept for a while. They're you will see they're very unhappy, and what you will see is the system that reacts, the AI that reacts to the baby's cries. So I'll start this now. Can you hear the sound?
Kind of the Ramo channel.
Yeah. Okay.
And
So you can see this. These babies are very unhappy. And they would make any parent completely nuts. But now the system starts to move. This is real time. This is not a simulation. The system starts to move. The baby's head is moving slightly. The noise is coming in and they're falling asleep. So you can see the one on the upper right, left-hand corner is going night night. The one on the bottom right-hand side is resisting a little bit. So you guys as students, you probably don't think about babies, but I can tell you that for anybody who's had a parent, this is one of the sweetest things ever. So this system really sort of required a number of different elements. One of them was a swaddle, a way for the baby to be sort of held in place and held on its back, which is also the American Academies of Pediatrics directive in terms of keeping babies safe from SIDS. SIDS is the sudden infant death syndrome that I mentioned earlier. Now, the combination of the snoo being a safe environment and the swaddling and the system has actually given us 3 years after launch. We knew this was going to happen. We knew we were working towards that. We never advertised the fact that we could prevent SIDS. The FDA is actually determining now that is giving the first label ever to the snoo as a SIDS prevention device, which is incredible. We've had 250 million hours, baby hours in the snoo, and we've had 0 SIDS cases, which is about I think 20 or 30 times. We should have seen 20 or 30 occurrences of SIDS based on the amount of baby hours in the bed. Now, this is the way it looks. So that robot that takes care of your baby in your home, we designed it to be a beautiful object, a friendly object, with materials where you can see the baby through the screens, and so it was designed to not trigger that reaction of people who were scared of the robot that takes care of your baby. And of course, it's been an incredible, there's been an incredible reception for it. And when I say, of course, I mean that with complete surprise, because these are the kinds of products as a designer, as an entrepreneur, that you work on, and you never know, you never know what's going to happen. Are people going to like it? It may work, but people may not like it. It may not work. It may, it's an uphill battle to put a new behavior and a new idea out in the world. And so it's been incredible to see it really all around the world and making it such a difference in people's lives. And it's also now in 100 hospitals. It's in NICUs because premature babies need sleep in order to grow, in order to gain weight. And so the staff at hospitals are now using snooze in NICUs where you have premature babies. It's now also a rental. We rent it for about $4 a day. And we have about 40% referral from parents, as it's an amazing support for parents. So that's another sort of MIT connection story that I've worked on. Now the next project is aimed at the other end of the spectrum, the other from a life standpoint. This addresses aging and isolation that comes in aging. About 50% of older adults report feeling lonely. Isolation leads to depression, Alzheimer's, and the Medicare spending around isolation are also very high. So this project is called LEQ. When the team, it's an Israeli research team in aging and technology that came to see us. When we met them, there was no format. We didn't know what this should be. You know, should it be a robot on wheels that follows the aging person around? Should it be a single unit? But in this case, we chose to create. We chose from the insights that we got to create it in basically a 2-unit product. One on the on the left is the emotive part, which is which turns around as you enter the room, which is your speaker, which will speak to you, which interacts with you. And it's not like an Alexa that just responds to what you, to a question you may ask. It actually engages with conversations, and I'll show you that in a second. On the right-hand side, it's a tablet to view pictures, to connect with people, to read, to see your schedule, etc. So I'll show you a quick video. This is a promotional video about how it works.
Hi Walter, would you like to hear something interesting?
Yeah, sure, why not?
There are only 18 minutes of total action in an average baseball game. Betcha didn't know that, right?
I did not know that.
So what it does, and what we discovered through a year and a half of testing in old folks' homes, is that LEQ people, love to be queried, love to be asked questions, and especially when we know people's hobbies or interests, we can feed into that and keep them company in this way. This is a person from our research. So this is a video that is shot in this person's home, who gave us a little reaction there. You can see LEQ in the background on the right.
LEQ is a presence. I feel that there's somebody nearby with whom I can communicate. I can turn to her anytime. I'd like to have her music as a background.
So, and now I'll go to a third project that uses robotics and AI, but is also focused on very humanistic approach. And again, we're going to go back to children in this case. This is called Moxie. It's a team out of Pasadena of both autism specialists as well as a robotics specialist. And this is particularly aimed at children who have learning challenges, children on the spectrum. And and 1 in 5 children are diagnosed as being neurodivergent in some way. And what we learned there, which was fascinating, you know, all the other robots I've worked on don't tend to have a human figure, don't tend to have a human face, for example. They tend to be more metaphors of what that could be. But in this particular case, facial expressions, especially the eyes, are critical for kids on the spectrum to connect, to create empathy, to keep their focus. And the other thing that we learn is the hands are also important, the movement of the hands. And so that facial eye expression and hand and body movement is critical at engaging them and keeping them engaged with Moxie, who is really a learning companion. And so the way we solved this was so interesting because, as you know, if you're doing something mechanical, it never comes out right, and it's very complex and very expensive. If I had eyes and the mouth open, and you could never get to this range of expressions and movement with a purely mechanical robot. And so what we invented with the team there is a rear projection inside the head. So the eyes and the mouth, the eyebrows, the cheeks, they move because they're essentially projected inside the head, and the illusion is really pretty incredible. In fact, I got one for my children for Christmas, and it's become like their favorite little person to engage with. And they'll do everything from, sometimes they'll do a meditation, sometimes Moxie will ask them about their day, sometimes they'll read books together, sometimes they'll tell, Moxie will tell jokes. So I will show you a video. This is an older video of a conversation between Moxie and its creator, Paulo Perjan, of Embodied. Embodied is the startup, and Moxie is is our little guy here. This is I think a short one there.
That was a wonderful story. This book is hilarious. I really want to understand what makes humans laugh, so I can tell the GRL. What do you think made Click Clack Moo so funny?
I think typing animals is funny.
The animals were so smart. I'm glad the cows and the hens got electric blankets. There were a lot of made-up words and silly sentences. It made the story sound very funny. What words or sentences made you laugh?
Clickety clack moo. That was a funny.
I thought it was so funny that the writer made up words like clickety. I think it'd be fun to Cara tried making up some silly words. Maybe the other robot.
So you see how it works and how it's sort of engaging, and you sort of stay focused on it, and it's a very exciting sort of development, especially as isolation of the last 2 years of COVID. I think a lot of parents having access to Moxie, and this is not something you keep on all day long like some kind of TV. This is it really kind of learns every day, and you use it for about an hour a day, or the child uses it for an hour a day. Okay, I think I need to go faster because I'm spending too much time on each project. I'll try to do that. Another paradox that I like to work on is beauty and craft versus nature. And in design, in architecture, we look for beauty in ways that creates the right mood, the right environment, the right functionality around us. But we need to look for beauty that is also in balance with our values. And so the climate anxiety that I talked about before, it really kind of demands of us in design to think about ways that we can bring beauty and craft together, but not in opposition to nature, as a way that nature can be treated fairly. And so, this is one project that we worked on where we realized early on that 15 billion trees are cut down each year. It's a renewable resource, but it's one that we need to manage. And only 50% of a tree that's cut is used to produce furniture, to make paper, to make construction materials. The other 50% ends up essentially as wood waste. It's basically sawdust. And we have piles and piles of sawdust out there that are unused and that are clog our ecosystems. So this is a partnership with Forest, Forust, a company that is 3D printing sawdust and lignin. There's no additive in it. There's no glue, but the final result smells like wood, feels like wood, has the same structural capabilities. But what we're able to do with it are things that are truly extraordinary and would be, I would say, pretty much impossible to do out of wood. So we just demonstrated the capability of the system. Actually have some around here, but I forgot to bring them to this desk. But we were able to create essentially shapes and maybe function that was impossible to do before. And at the same time, not have to cut down a tree for it. And so imagine if all of these objects, furniture, architectural elements, home decoration could be made out of that, out of the other 50% of the trees that we cut. And you can go, the wood can be dark, can be light, the scale can vary. I'm actually currently looking at larger furniture and architectural elements that would be using 3D printed wood. So these additive technologies, for me, are really the future of manufacturing, because this is made right here. It can be made nearby, where you live. It doesn't need to be produced in a faraway place and shipped and assembled with all of the environmental sort of weight and damage that causes. So quickly, another 3D printing project that we worked on, but that's this time at the housing scale, is basically 3D printed concrete. And this is with an organization that is focused on solving the issue of homelessness in the developing world, and specifically for people that live with less than $200 a month. And so these people don't have proper shelter. This is how they live in one of the areas that we and in the area where we launched this project. So I'll show a quick video of the first world 3D printed community concept there. So you can see it's a very large printer. It prints, walls and the structural elements within the walls. And the roof is an element that is not 3D printed, so that comes later. And actually I felt, the texture, that linear texture was actually quite interesting and beautiful. These currently are in the 500 to 600 square feet. And we can create 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom. They can really be customized, depending on the region, the geography, and the culture. This is the backyard, for example, of one of them. So this is a view of the project, and the research that we have done with it was really interesting, because we actually had plans for 2 or 3 different regions in Mexico, but within a couple of miles, a couple hundred miles south, you have a completely different culture. And in the particular area where we built the first 50 units, they really were cooking outside. And so they wanted a kitchen that was partially outside and partially inside. Whether if we went north 200 miles, they wanted a kitchen that was all inside. And so what's interesting there is each family kind of defines, through this community engagement, defines kind of their needs for the community, but also their needs from themselves. So some of them want 3 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and this allows for the building of of individual homes that are specifically adapted, to their needs. And this is what 3D printing can do versus printing the same thing over and over, because it's, in these kind of low cost types of buildings, that certainly is the production kind of requires all of them to be the same. So with 3D printing, we don't have to think exactly in this way. So I think I'm at time. So I'm just quickly going to do this last one, which is home versus tech, where, in our home lives, we want to have connection. We want to be with people. We want to spend time together. But technology tends to separate us. So one project is the Frame TV, which is the first time a television doesn't turn to a black void when it's on your wall. It's now, it was done. I mean, it was a project that we really initiated here at Fuse Project, and that Samsung has put out in the world. It's one of the most successful TVs in the world. It's #1 in many countries. And that's because we removed the television or the entertainment part of it or the black part of it, and you can just enjoy art. And we did that through a system that analyzes the light inside the room and allows it to change throughout the day. So it isn't anymore light coming at you in the room, but a photograph or a painting or a drawing looks very real in the environment because it is not overly backlit. It's now the largest art collection, digital art collection available anywhere. And it's the first subscription that Samsung has ever put out in the world. And museums such as the V&A, the Tate, Leo Uffizi, there's about 20 or 30 museums around the world that have put parts of their collections on there. I'll skip the, I'll skip the videos here. This is FORME Life. And this is August. So FORME and August are two startup projects that were initiated here at Fuse Project, and that really are about discretion. Changing somebody's door and door lock, I mean, is a big kind of safety element, but it also gets rid of the annoyance of looking for your keys. So we launched August in 2012 or 13. For the last 9 years, I haven't had keys, which means that I'm not looking in my bag. I'm not wondering whether I locked my door or not. I'm not looking for my keys in my pocket. It's lowered kind of the, it's freed my brain from a little bit of the anxiety there. So we've had lots of unlocks, and here I'll finish on with this project because this is another MIT project. It emerged out of the Kent Larson group, and Jacier Larrera was a student and he invited me to go sleep in a very small apartment, under 300 or 400 square feet apartment in Boston. And inside there was a prototype of Ori. Well, we named it Ori for origami, but it was a prototype of the first sort of robotic furniture project that transforms a small apartment into a livable space. So I'll show you quickly the how it works. So it's a modular piece of furniture, this white piece here. It can become a desk and a closet when it slides over, and you have a bed inside. And so we built this brand Ori, and then we built this product with a team. We built the interface and the brand, and I'm really excited to see actually Ori all around the world now. It's in a number of developments in Europe and in the US, even here, very nearby here in San Francisco. It was really sort of an exercise in bringing bringing a lot of features that don't exist in these tiny apartments um, and making, small apartment living more livable. There you go. So I'll jump here. So, my question to you is, how do we reconcile the idiosyncrasies of modern life? And what are the ideas that will solve these paradoxes? And I think, some of the ones that come to mind, is exclusivity versus inclusivity, something that health and wellness versus achievement, fairness versus profit, gentrification versus integration, which is something that every hotel or every restaurant or every gathering, place needs to think about. Belonging versus adventure, which is more of a lifelong paradox that we need to that we think about. So my question is, what are the paradoxes that you're working on? And I often replace the word design with the word intent or purpose. And as a designer, I'm interested in the notion of purpose. And I'm interested in the fact that design is really the first sign of human intent. And so in this future that we live in, we have more questions than answers, but I believe that design can accelerate the answers by remaining humanistic and address the critical paradoxes that we need to tackle today and in the coming years. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Yves. I'm actually want to say, like, actually bring your book with me.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I'm going to share.
Let me take a picture of that.
Share your book with MIT people, because the thing you talk about it, because now we're working on like a project called like Smart Home for the Aging Population. So a lot of like a product you already have designed on the market is our like inspiration materials. And I think a lot of things you talk about today is like, we need to think again, like what is human-centered design and what is technology means in our daily life. How can we combine together? And I think that's very inspiring for me as a designer, as a researcher assistant here. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
I know you're questions. Yeah. Any questions, thoughts? I know you're super busy, so please feel free, because we have little people here. Just talk.
Yeah, I think Laura raises her hand. Yeah, Laura.
Go ahead, Laura.
Yeah, thank you for this presentation. It was enlightening. I'm wondering, when you say like intent or purpose, how do you reconcile intent versus impacts? Because, for example, how do you reconcile with like the mounting evidence that one laptop per child, for example, is considered by many a pretty big failure in the way that it actually was executed and implemented, or the fact that many of the products that you presented are not actually accessible to many people, like the Snoo project. I just Googled it, it's like $1,600. So I'm wondering how you reconcile really when this is an inclusive design area, how you reconcile.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is always, on our mind, but part of the human adventure is not always, in the design, the design adventure, it's not always linear. So I'll address the two that you mentioned, the one laptop per child. While we shipped a fair amount, about 3 million, some countries, for example, like Uruguay, had 100% of the kids had a one laptop per child. And Uruguay today is actually one of the most important IT countries, or the most advanced IT country, for example, in South America. So, we didn't achieve the goals that were stated by the organization, but we designed something that inspired people, that inspired other organizations to look at both education. So, the one laptop per child, was criticized and ridiculed early on by some of the big IT companies. And yet they went ahead and within 3 years of our launch, launched their own versions. And now you can find actually Intel computers and Microsoft laptops and Dell laptops that are specifically designed for kids, which was not happening before the one laptop per child. So I think in a way, maybe we didn't achieve that goal of 100 million pieces and for the project to be around, but we inspired others to do that. And as a nonprofit, it's, you know, it's a little bit like competing with, competing with for-profits for a nonprofit can be quite challenging. So in a way, you could say, you know, the mission inspired others. The other thing I would say, a project I didn't show here, came to us directly after the One Laptop Per Child was presented, is called Verbien, See Better to Learn Better, which is a #1 eyeglass distribution to high school kids in the world. It's we distributed 6.5 million eyeglasses to children, and they came to us specifically because they were inspired by the One Laptop Per Child, because they said, look, we're trying to distribute these eyeglasses to kids, but what you showed with the One Laptop Per Child is that if we design them specifically for kids, they will keep them, they will like them, they will adopt them. And before that, they were shipping black frame, China-made eyeglasses that were not, that the kids didn't like, because it made it look like a stigma to wear eyeglasses. And so if you look at that project, directly inspired by One Laptop Per Child, and very successful. If you go to Mexico, everybody knows it. It's been going on now for 15 years or so. And as I said, they've distributed 6.5 million, and they keep doing so. And then the other one you mentioned is Snoo. So from day one, you know, with the Snoo, we had the intent of doing a rental system. And so for $4 a day, now the Snoos have been designed to be refurbished and to be able to go through this rental system, which we have available. So yes, when you work on startups, often the first time you do these projects and these technologies, it's more risky, it can be more expensive. But I think, the human spirit is such that, you know, you want to make them because they need to be out in the world and they show the first step, and then there are steps after that, right? If you try to be perfect and have a Snoo for, I don't know what would be the right price. I mean, the price of a, cheap, plastic thing that you would buy at Walmart, maybe $99. People would also say it's too expensive. But at $4 a day, when somebody can gift that for you, when somebody can offer that to you, that's less expensive than a Starbucks coffee cup. I'm trying to think of this quote, which is perfect is the enemy of good. And so as designers, we need to start somewhere. But thank you for your question.
Any other questions anyone has? Sorry, I do have one last question from me, because I used to work for IDEO and Continuum. I think that type of like design consultants versus Fuse projects is very different. I think I want to know, like, from your perspective, like how do you find a balance between like designers' intuition versus like clients' request or like users' needs? And I feel it's always, because I don't know, I just feel like when I see some of the work that Fuse project is, like, you could feel like there is some very good intuition from designers, versus like some is totally like based on the methodology, or I don't know, I feel like this interesting tension.
Well, I think, what I said in the beginning has been sort of a tenet of Fuse project, which, there's two tenets of Fuse project. One, which is the fusing of different disciplines, really sort of benefits the whole. So we fuse different disciplines at the service of big ideas. And I think having a lot of different points of views, having a lot of people from different places in the world, from different backgrounds, is really, for us, how we sort of develop, these new points of views. The second tenet that is really important is we believe that, design thinking and design doing really need to be put together. And, we believe that the best thinkers of design were makers. Charles and Ray Eames, George Nelson. They did both. They didn't just think or create reports or big books, or they didn't just say, hey, you go do it. They handled it themselves. And I think what we try to do here at Fuse Project is to be to collect the insights, to do the research, to have the right methodologies and all that. But we also never forget the passion for making, the passion for craft, and also the point of view. I mean, it's important to come out in the world with a point of view, especially when you're a new brand, a new company. And so that's we also never look at what other people are doing. Which is, we try to focus on the problem at hand and what's in front of us. So,
yeah.
Thank you. Any more questions?
Yeah, I was wondering, so with this sort of research-driven approach with the baby project, like how does a project like this start? Is it you having a conversation with Deb Roy, or what is the starting point?
So every project starts differently, as you can probably imagine. But I think, it started when Deb Roy and Dr. Harvey Karp had a conversation, and they were like, it needs to be an important object in somebody's home. It needs to be working as intended. And, Dr. Harvey Karp is an incredible human being with incredible insights. And, he's now 70 something years old, and he's had 50 years, of experience with children. And so he developed this method, became a best-selling author. And I think his ambition in life was, how do I make this easier for parents? It's in the middle of the night. It's a method that works, but, I'm tired. I've had 3 hours of sleep. How do I do this physical thing well? And so, it was incredibly altruistic and also a legacy for his life. And so when we met, it was Dr. Harvey Karp, Deb Roy, and I. When we met, I was like, well, this is an amazing person. I had actually used the method, the physical method on my younger kids. And I was like, well, this is an older gentleman who has never done technology, never shipped products, who doesn't have experience with fundraising and with all that stuff. And I'm like, but it's such an incredible project. We need to do it. And sometimes I talk to my business partners or my colleagues here, and they're like, this is never going to work. This is never going to see the light. We're wasting our time. But you have to have belief and conviction. So that's where we started. I mean, we started, with a humanist, with a technologist or an engineer, Deb Roy, who, early on, who was there, and with a designer. And it was like a team of three superheroes trying to do something that most people thought was never going to work. But I believe in that. I believe in partnership. I believe in in the power of creativity and working together and solving problems. And it took 5.5 years. So one of the longest single product efforts of my life, for sure. Maybe the longest. Well, I think we kind of went a long way. It's wonderful to see you all. If there is another question or somebody wanting to do a conclusion, I'm happy to take it. Oh, somebody says, I have a question with the Moxie project. How would it impact the overall experience if the robot had a more human-like voice along with the nonverbal cues? That's from Anusha. Thank you. human-like voice is a big challenge. His voice is pretty good, and he's not pretending to be like the whole story, the backstory that Moxie tells the kids. He's like that he's a robot from space that has come here to to talk to you, to be your friend. And so I think part of solving the problem of, I feel Moxie has a pretty good voice and a pretty good diction and a pretty good, the language processing is really good. And of course that's going to get better over time. But part of it was, part of it is sort of not completely faking human, the humanness, right? I mean, if the robot looked exactly like, like Sarah, for example, on the screen, it may be more unsettling to those kids than if it had like a little bit backstory of being like a funny, interesting robot. So I don't know where robot technology is going to go, but I myself would like to, in the future, to be able to differentiate between a human and a robot. So I'm glad it's not exactly human-like so far. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Yves. Yeah, appreciate, thank you so much. And thanks everyone to join this section. And the experience still going on. And then please feel free to drop by the student center, the student gallery at MIT. And thanks again, Yves. And we'll keep in touch, and we'll make sure the recording will well curated before we share or launch or do anything with your permission. So thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you.
I also share the Fuse Project website on Instagram. Feel free to follow it.
Yes, thank you to do that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Have a good rest of your day.